You know, every time that we have these, I kind of try and figure out where the title drop is.
Yeah.
And the title drop always happens when you
Least
say.
expected.
No, it's always when you say.
It's when I say.
Every single time it's been whenever you say.
See, I feel like there's some force that mocks me with the title drop. It's always there looming and listening for the best time to comedically put me just on my rear end with the title drop.
Make you look like an idiot.
Do you really have to try?
Oh,
Wow.
oh,
Wow.
we're going to have to cut this out. This does sound like bullying.
Yeah, it does.
Is this what
Hate
really
speech.
happens? What did you say?
Hate speech.
She hates me because of my red hair.
Yep.
Even though I
She
dye my
hates you
hair
because
red.
she wants to be you.
It's the envy. It's
That's
that
what it is.
spirit of envy. I've been wondering every time. I'm like, there's something on Jamie. And then I see her red hair and I say, something's not real there.
I have to pay money for this hair. And I just want the ones that you have. The hair that you have.
Next time, hey, you know what? When I get this cut off someday,
Oh, no.
it's yours. I will.
Oh no. Oh no. Wow, that was a real.
I'm
Wait
good.
a minute.
I'm
The
Let's
good.
spicy opening. The spicy opening.
Let's talk about this. Why don't you want Levi's hair?
Because it's not my hair.
But what's wrong with it?
It's,
What if you lost all your hair and Levi, out of the love of his heart, grew out his hair and then cut it off for you to wear as a wig?
That's actually what I'm doing preemptively.
We see how thin your hair is.
This is a spicy opening. Oh my
I've
god.
always struggled with thin hair. I have fine hair and not a lot of it.
Don't you worry, mine's getting a little bit thin myself. It's that's why it's growing out so long. Because next time it gets cut, it's not growing back.
I will say though, when I got pregnant, I prayed that the Lord would bless me with curly hair. So
You didn't answer that prayer.
no,
Jamie,
he did not. And the reason why is like, it's not just far fetched. The reason why is because a lot of women, when they become pregnant, their hair can sometimes change.
You know, it's
like,
probably because you
completely.
prayed that he didn't answer it. If you didn't pray, it probably
was-
would have happened.
it
But
was
he's
a
like,
selfish
she's
prayer.
asking to consume it upon her own lust. So
I'll tell you what. It also might be him guarding you from your wishes, because curly hair is not all it is shaken up to be. It's not the best.
I know. You know what I do though?
Mm-hmm.
I'm showing some colors here. I watch now. My hair is pin straight. Like, I don't straighten my hair.
Okay.
I watch videos on Instagram Reels of curly hair care. Like how people like take care of their curly hair. And like their wash routines and like
That's so different. Never heard
it's a real thing.
vicariously.
So like
That's so different.
I
So,
think
like-
different is a nice word. Yikes.
The lady on the screen shakes her hair and Jamie goes. That's awesome. I can't.
So, all that to say, I would know how to
Jamie.
take care of the hair that you gave me. I wouldn't have to do research. I would know how to take care of it because I've watched enough videos.
I'm like sweating.
You got to do the bowl technique. Are
Kids are sleeping.
are you familiar with the bowl technique? As a person with curly hair? And title drop. Between the curly hair care techniques, and the pimple popping and the earwax cleaning videos. I watch some weird stuff.
You know what though? I will say I do get. Oh man, we're gonna have so many people like clicking away from this. I do get the weird pimple popping videos.
Oh, I love that.
Stop.
We're gonna
hate
have
them
to. We
so
are gonna have to
much.
nip that one.
I hate them so much.
There is a specific audience for the satisfaction of that one.
Yeah.
And that is not me. Holy cow.
Anyway, do you
What
have a
start.
story?
I do have a story. I was actually going to segue into it until you ruined my segue.
I don't know if there was a
What was your
segue.
segue?
Levi, you're disturbed by her weird hair things. You know, in Ezekiel, he had a vision where he was also disturbed.
I don't know if disturbed is the right word on my end. It was highly entertaining. It was very. I can't even look at you.
I'll have to send you the videos that I watch.
You know, I guess because I never knew that there was like a specific way to take care of her curly hair.
Yeah, there
Perhaps
is.
I have been. You know what? Perhaps I have been looking a gift the wrong way.
You know, Levi, as somebody with straight hair, I would love to teach you. I would love to teach you how to take care of your curly hair.
This is the hardest thing to get through.
The irony is intentional.
You know what? Someday I will come over.
You come over here and you start letting her do that. That's just going to make her year.
You know, I kind of want to though because it sounds
I
nice.
can teach you the bowl technique.
I've
It's a lot
never
of
heard
work
of the bowl
though.
technique.
I don't think you would do the bowl technique very often.
Who knows? I didn't even know there was a whole thing for taking care of curly hair.
You know,
I've been neglecting this.
you've got more of like spirals. I think that could come out if you do the right technique.
I'm so excited. I had no idea that there's a whole world around my hair that I have not been. I've neglected it. I feel bad.
Yeah. So
All right, tell us.
there we go.
Tell us the story we've never heard before.
Yeah, the story we've never heard before.
Let's.
Take 3.
Whew.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Whew.
So, I have a story. On July 31st, when Ezekiel was 30 years old, he had what I would assume to be a vision.
Right.
In this vision, it gives us a very interesting look at angels and their appearance, what he perceived them to look like. And he said they look like humans, so you're starting off okay. But then they had 4 faces and 4 wings. So you can get weird. And
That's when things start to kind of go
that's
south.
when things start to take a turn.
Right. That's when you start being like, hey, wait a minute. These aren't normal.
Yeah.
People coming out of the clouds, I can do that.
I can do that. But when you start getting more faces than one, it's where you start to lose me.
And now we've got wings.
4. And their wings would stand, apparently they were side by side and their wings would touch. And each of them moved without turning their body. And so, we talked about this, but this fact, I still think it's hilarious because it also disturbed me. And I think Ezekiel and I would get along quite a bit. Because he mentions this several times, how they would move without turning their body.
Right. Which, in generally speaking, when you are telling a story, when you reiterate a point, that's the thing that bothers you.
Yeah. That's the thing that sticks out to you the most. And the thing he mentions the most is that they moved without turning their bodies. It wasn't the 4 faces. It wasn't anything else. They moved without turning their bodies, guys.
That's because it's unnatural in our
It's very unnatural.
realm.
Again,
It
unless you have a
just-
hoverboard.
Yes.
Well, and then it gets even more interesting because the front face was human. But then the faces he says they had, the 4 faces he has, one is on the right side of the lion. On the left side, it's an ox. And on the back side, it's an eagle. So it had I guess it could cover 360 vision.
And it's interesting because in one of the various recordings of this segment, you brought up that there was probably significance to that.
There probably is.
And we went last time. It's funny because, again, we're referring to multiple times. Last time, Jamie found that there was a significance in the number 4.
Yes. Yes.
And what was that again? Was the completeness?
Yeah.
The wholeness,
Wholeness?
I believe. Let me double check.
Okay. I'd be interesting. While he's telling this, you might also want to see if those animals have any significance as well.
I would assume they do.
So it represents wholeness.
Right.
And, as I couldn't remember what the animals were.
Ox, lion, eagle.
Yeah, but what I just realized is you got four beings, four creatures that represent all like different the four basic parts of, I don't know how to describe this, but so I'm going to go a different way. So you've got human, who represents, like farming and
Kind of like what he had Adam do.
like what Adam had to do. Yeah.
Taking care
and
of
then,
the land, things like that.
yeah. And then you've got like the eagle who soars, takes care of the sky, not takes care of the sky, but is part of the sky.
Right.
And is probably one of the most magnificent creatures of the air. One of them. And then you have the oxen, you said,
An ox, yeah.
which is at least not now, but several hundred years ago, before the days of technology, that was probably one of the most important or useful animals that humans had.
Oh, in the field especially, yeah.
Or a symbol of like strength.
Yeah. And then you've got the lion, which is known as like the king of beasts. So I wonder, I think there had to have been significance to those four animals.
To combine them into an angel.
Yeah. And, I'm not really sure how to explain it the way that I'm thinking about it, but that's kind of the gist that I'm.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to like look into, and maybe we can do a podcast later on about like the really deep dive into angels and
That'd
the
be
study of
fun.
angels and stuff. But
The beastery of angels.
yeah, but like the significance of each of those animals in Jewish tradition
Oh, yeah.
would probably give us a good idea of why they were all smashed together, possibly.
Right.
Yeah.
Or give us a theory as to why God smashed them all together into one being that moved without turning. But what's interesting in this description too is, they had four wings, two were outstretched to touch each other, and then two covered their bodies. And then
I didn't know
there
the
was-
two covered their bodies.
Yeah, two covered their bodies, and then two outstretched. And in between each of them, he said all of them shone like a brilliant torch or bright coals, so they were glowing. They had like hooves as feet and stuff that were like brass. And he said that there was like lightning, what seemed to him as lightning that would like go between them.
Okay.
And they would dash across, like they would move across, like basically like lightning, he said. And so they were like, but I would assume they all moved in unison too, since all their wings are touching, which is really interesting. So they have four faces, they come in four, they're all touching, it's just really weird.
It's a very detailed visual of them.
Yeah.
Especially for, you'd want to go back and kind of look and see at the time, like what all was around in terms of like the mythological, but this seems so foreign.
Yeah.
Does that, you know what I mean? Like in terms of, you look at other gods at that time, other, I guess, mythos of that time, and there's really nothing like this.
I mean, you did have a lot of gods and mythos that had like half human, half
Oh, absolutely.
beast.
But in terms of like describing the way they're moving in this very weird,
Yeah,
this
that's
is
true.
very,
That's
this is, or like the lightning that's shooting between them, or, even you're going to go further and to explain, the symbiosis they have with other angels.
Right. Right, because it it says that As I looked at these beings, I saw 4 wheels touching the ground beside them. 1 wheel belonged to each. So one of these wheels belonged to each of these angels, and there was also 4 of these wheels. And the wheels sparkled as if they were made of beryl, or like it's like a gemstone, I guess. And then all 4 wheels looked alike and were made the same. Each wheel had a second wheel turning crosswise within it, which is super interesting. So like a wheel within a wheel, it's like,
And they're turning in
Yeah.
like opposite directions.
the beings could move in any of the 4 directions. The beings could move in any of the 4 directions they faced without turning as they moved. There it is again.
So that's the 3rd time.
Yeah, he's very disturbed by that.
They're not turning, guys.
Rightly so. The rims of the 4 wheels were tall and frightening, and they were covered with eyes all around. So the rims of these wheels were something to see because they scared him.
Right.
And at least he was like, these are freaky. And they have eyes all around them, which that's such a visceral, like, terrifying image. And like, if you look at AI images of these things, it's really like, ooh.
People have done like AI images of them.
Yes, and it's
I'm
freaky.
surprised you haven't seen them. They are a little
Yeah, I showed Jamie. They're
Weird.
freaky.
Well, and then we just recently looked up, and I thought this was really interesting, is because you would assume that these, and like they were all one being.
Yeah, because if you read on, he says when the living beings moves, the wheels moved with them too. When they flew upward, and he kind of goes on to describe it. And like when they stopped, all that. And then he says, when the beings flew upward, the wheels rose up, for the spirit of the living beings was in the wheels.
Right.
Which is really interesting. So the spirit of these 4-faced beings was in the wheels. So I don't know if that just means that they were all in such unity, or if that means they were somehow symbiotically connected.
Right. And I mean, that kind of goes into the further discussion of, someday it would be really cool to really dig into angels and kind of see how much the Bible describes their, I guess, ecosystem. Because, I mean, you look at the world around us and there's an obvious ecosystem. Some animals prey on others. Some animals need others to live. You have a symbiosis, parasitic. And you look at these angels and there's obviously something symbiotic going on here because those are 2 separate kinds of angels. You got the cherubim, which you looked up. And
Which are the 4-faced ones.
Which are the 4-faced ones. And then the globulin.
Globulin, no. I think
Goblin?
that's like a Star Trek thing, the globulin.
Oh, gosh.
I don't know what that's from.
I believe it's pronounced Galgalim.
Okay, so it's not too far off.
Not too far off.
One more time.
Galgalim.
Galgalim. I'm not going to remember this.
That's okay.
But it's interesting because it's like those are 2 separate angels.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But there's a unity there. There's a symbiosis there. So it's interesting to think that there is probably an ecosystem with angels that either, I don't know if the Bible reveals it to us or if, we don't know it yet, but there's probably like a whole thing with that.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it could be very similar to how we are supposed to operate here on earth as a church, where every joint supplies, and we create a body.
Oh,
So
you're right.
It could be a very similar picture.
Because there's
with
probably an
angels.
intelligent design there. Oh, there's not probably. There's.
There probably is.
Did I hear lightning?
They're coming for you.
Shoot. But there's an intelligent design to it. So it's just interesting. I never really thought about that before, but there probably is like a whole way that angels operate even beyond just a spiritual means. There's probably like a spiritual ecosystem.
There's
there.
like a hierarchy for sure, because there's archangels.
Right.
Yeah.
Michael is an archangel. So there's hierarchy. There's obviously different kinds of angels and things like that. So kind of interesting to look at. And I think that's one of the things that we just won't know until we get to heaven,
Yeah.
of how God set all that up.
I almost wonder though, because I mean, the Bible has a lot
And we should definitely do. That's why I'm saying we should do a deep dive episode into.
You know, because I mean,
angels.
even how Jamie was saying, you know, the animals have the significance, the meanings. He might have hid how they operate in his word.
Right.
And we just haven't done the deep dive in there to see how they're all interconnected. There, he might reveal quite a bit of their is the ecosystem the right word?
I don't know.
They're just operations or
How
how
they
they
operate,
operate.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But, you know, you read this description of them too, and it's terrifying. It's very odd. They move really weird. But then he also talks about how they sounded
Oh yeah.
when they flew. And he says, as they flew, their wings sounded to me like crashing waves against the shore, or like a voice of the Almighty, or like the shouting of a mighty army. And so it sounded like basically an army of men shouting when they moved, or like waves and stuff. And it's interesting because, like he says, the voice of the Almighty, and his voice is also attributed to like rushing waters and stuff.
Just making sure nothing goes wrong now. We don't get to this far very often. We don't get this far very often. This is
Everything looking good?
Everything's still recording.
Okay.
No babies are crying. We're
okay.
Yeah, it'd be very loud, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And probably like overstimulating, you know,
Yeah.
just like that, having that kind of sound in your ears.
Overwhelming. Be not
Overwhelming.
afraid.
Yeah.
Okay, so ecosystem would work for this.
It would, okay.
It would. It's like a geographic area where living organisms, biotic factors, and non-living components, abiotic factors interact and influence each other to form a
Okay.
self-sustaining system.
Yeah, there you
Okay.
go.
Yeah, there we go. That works.
That works.
I was curious because I was like, this sounds maybe not right.
Yeah.
Sounds not right, but it also sounds. It feels right.
Right.
It's weird because we're talking about a different realm. I think is why it felt kind of weird.
Like
to
a
use that
super
word.
foreign realm
Yeah.
that Ezekiel's experiencing right now.
Yeah.
So
When he was 30 years old. But like one of the things that you brought up that I thought was interesting too, though, is like, you know, like I've heard this in like different like near-death experiences and things like that, where people like see things and have visions, or like you go to a place and there's a knowing of things.
right, like there's a general knowing.
There's a general knowing of what's happening around you. You're not totally
Yeah.
in the dark about it. And, you know, he obviously had a general knowing of what was happening around him and what was going on with these angels, because he said the spirit of these living beings was in the wheels.
Right, he perceived that spirit.
Yeah. He perceived that in a Revelations type fashion. It's not something he saw.
And again, you do hear that a lot in near-death experiences is people will say that they just have a general, like, they're not confused. They're not left in ignorance. They just have a general knowledge of everything going on around them.
Yeah.
So it's like that kind of that veil of ignorance was lifted in that moment.
Yeah. And we should do a deep dive into that too, and then one of the podcasts here, because that's really interesting, near-death
Yeah.
experiences.
We're getting a lot of plans for future episodes.
Yeah, a lot
Stay
of
tuned,
plans. Stay
guys.
tuned.
The Beastery of Angels and apparently the near-death thing.
Yeah.
That'll be an
Yeah.
interesting
Ease.
one, though.
But, you know, we talked about in the last I think it was the last podcast, about how angels were babies and like
Yeah.
how they got interpreted as that, and
Right.
why it goes on like that. We have found our answer.
See, I'm excited.
I have
'cause
done research.
I'm excited. I'm excited. We don't get this far very often.
So if you guys remember from last, Jamie said, well, it was probably an artist's interpretation,
Right.
because people didn't know, like a lot of them couldn't read, and so it was told to them and stuff like that.
And I mentioned how, you know, angels are, you know, they wanted to portray them as, you know, pure, innocent, and
Right.
what is something that we as humans attribute to being pure or innocent. Babies.
So the more boring, realistic one.
Yes. And I was sad because it wasn't what was the
Wrong.
word I used? I don't even remember because I'm so tired, but it wasn't controversial enough, basically.
No, it wasn't. You used outlandish. It was a different. It was
It
a
wasn't
sentiment of
controversial
that.
enough.
My scenario was that someone knowingly infiltrated the Catholic Church to paint these wiener versions of much cooler beings to take away their coolness.
See, I like that. But it's even more dark than we thought. I don't have like lightning or thunder sounds.
Oh.
Thank you. It's even more dark than we thought. Babies depicted as angels is actually rooted in paganism. So the figure in the Renaissance art was known as Puto. Italian vernacular derived the Latin word for boy. It's the Latin word for boy, basically.
Right.
And the concept of the Puto reaches back in art to the classical world, where winged infants were physical manifestations of invisible essences or spirits called genies that were believed to influence humans' lives.
Like genie in a bottle? Is it spelled the same way?
Genii.
No, it's not.
Oh.
Because it I guess what you're thinking would be jinn. So unless that is a derivative of jinn, which it could be. But what's interesting that I think is how you just mentioned that, how they go into influence. Go ahead and expand on
influence
that.
people's lives. And so like the love putti or Erot were familiars of Eros or Cupid and Venus. In celebrations of like Dionysus, which we talked about him in the first episode a little bit, putti represented fertility, abundance, the spirit of fruit of the spirit of the fruit of life, and were often depicted in wild revelry. There was also putti associated with fear, dreams, the god Pan, water spirits, music, etc.
Is this like muses, maybe?
Some of them could be.
Yeah.
I mean, if it
sounds like I'm like the muses.
But they represented, I don't know what a muse is, but they represented basically little spirits
Yeah.
that would influence people's lives. And obviously, we know as Christians, those spirits are actually demonic devils
Yeah.
that influence people's lives and, do that kind of stuff. But they're depicted as little babies.
Yeah.
And
I
little,
wonder if they're
which is very
muses.
interesting.
Well, are you familiar with like Greek mythology muses?
it's been a while.
So
It sounds similar though.
I haven't gone into it in a long time, so I'm not 100% on it, but it just sounds very similar.
Well, and it's weird that you say it sounds like muses, because to me, I thought it sounded like yokai, which
I don't know
are
what
the
that
Japanese version of these things. So it's
Okay.
it's interesting how we're all thinking of a different culture that has a very similar element, which is these spirits that would basically influence the minor things. They all kind of have it.
Don't like the Irish people have like,
Fairies.
Fairies
Fairies,
and
the little people.
things like that, which is interesting. But they disappeared, like they kind of disappeared in the Middle Ages. But then they reappeared in early Renaissance Italy when they were used as personifications of the human spirit and emotions. They were especially made popular by the artist Donatello, who gave Puto a distinct character by infusing the form with Christian meanings and using it in new contexts, such as musician angels.
Oh, that's weird.
So Donatello really popularized that, and that's why you see it a lot in iconography and things like that in the Christian world, because it was then kind of re-stoked with him.
Snuck in like an angel of light.
Yep. And so these little babies are actually rooted in paganism.
You wouldn't think it, would you?
Spirits.
You
No.
wouldn't think it. I
Wow.
mean, you look at them; they look adorable. I mean, you would not think that there was a deeper, darker meaning behind that.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I just think it's so odd how you just see all these cultures falling on the same things.
Right.
I mean, same spirit, different
Right.
region,
Because I mean, in Japan, it was kind of a similar way. it had to do with the arts. It became very popular to draw and sell pictures of yokais and such. And then the yokais would serve the same purpose. They would just influence the minor things through the spiritual means.
Right.
And then if the muses, we'll have to look it up. Maybe you can look that up now. It's just, or fairies. I mean, like you just brought up, same thing. It's these little spiritual beings influencing the minor occurrences of life, which it's weird because that's biblical too.
Right.
And what verse is that? It's not flesh and blood, but spirit.
Yeah, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spirits and principalities and powers of the air. So, our lives are often, we can be influenced by the accuser, which is Satan.
Right.
And his lies. And those can influence our decisions, our choices, and the outcome of things in our lives. Or we can choose to believe the truth of God's word and what he says and choose to trust in him.
Well, it's funny because it rings true.
Yeah.
Even in something like this, where he straight up tells us in the Bible what all these other cultures seem to be at one point they just stumbled on.
Right.
That you do have a spiritual element that is influencing it.
Yeah. My camera just died out of nowhere.
No, yeah, my audio is acting really weird. What are we on right now?
Your audio is fine in mine.
That's weird. It's acting weird. What's
Are you
happening?
able to plug that in?
No, but I will try and get another battery.
AI
But
bin.
we can keep talking.
AI bin.
will happen,
AI
but-
bin.
Okay.
Oh, we're gonna have AI bin. Oh, I can't wait. I get to help him gin it. I get to
Okay.
help him gin AI bin. I'm so excited. I don't know what it's gonna be, but it's gonna be great.
That's exciting.
I'm very excited. See, we have a thing where I'm constantly hoping mine dies because I already have AI me. And I'm so excited.
You already have AIU.
Oh, I'm so excited to show AI me. But my camera has like the most consistent battery. So I'm the least likely.
Yeah.
It's because it's a phone. And I'm the least likely to get AI me.
Battery's going bad.
It is very odd. It's very odd. We've tried.
This was full when we started.
It was full when we started. We have tried doing this now, and we're going to keep doing it. We're going to get this out. AI bin's going to happen. It's going to be great.
Yeah. It's going to be great.
But this is our fourth try? Third try?
Yeah.
So obviously there is something to this discussion.
Yeah. So I did.
The spiritual side does not like this.
No.
The Pooties.
The boosh shoot.
So some of the muses, and like they're given like different things, like different tasks, kind of like how Ben described, like different things that they're in charge of. So like one is in charge of memory, one is in charge of song, one is in charge of poetry, history, the flute,
Just minor
tragedy,
things.
comedy, astronomy. I mean, just like
Any
minor
number of things.
Yeah, a number of things. And
Ranging from minor to huge.
yeah. And so like the majority of the things have to do with like history or the arts.
It's weird how it always seems to be presented through art.
Well, Lucifer was, they believe, a
Musician.
because when they describe Lucifer, it says he has like pipes coming out of his, like, I think it was his like collarbone or like pipes coming out of him and stuff.
Well, this kind of makes sense
As
because
a
I mean,
musical angel.
well, you start getting into it and look at kind of what art has devolved into today. And I think we actually talked a little bit about this on a previous episode, but I mean, people will claim that things are quote unquote art and they're just doing rituals.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you look at if anybody wants, and pray before you do it, but look at like CERN, what they released as their like, I can't remember, some sort of promotional art videos that they would do, and they're just like weird people in like robes drawing circles around each other and doing like all these other odd things. And it's very easy to just write everything off as art.
Yeah.
If you get called out, you say, well, you just don't get it. It's just art.
Yeah, and with
Hold your
music.
thought. Nope, you guys don't have to.
Okay. And it's interesting you say that because also like with music, I feel like that's a really easy way to slip in some evil agendas.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, one of the easiest ways, and that's been going on for decades.
Because not only are you getting it through your ears, you're speaking it over yourself if you're singing along with it.
Yeah.
And you have all these musicians who will just straight up tell you, "I sold my soul to the devil to be here." I mean, they'll just
they
say it.
do. They've said it. I've seen interviews.
Oh, 100%. You even get what? See, I don't want to say who because it could be one of those things.
Yeah,
but
maybe
you
we
have one of the more recent popular female singers. You know, she was doing an interview and she goes, she was getting frustrated and she either said like Satan bless it or something like that, and then she goes, "Oops," you know, they're very blatant about that element. And incorporating it into the music.
Right.
There was a guy that recently, System of a Down's, one of their, I guess either writers or somebody who helps them on songs, he told them to just straight up open a verse or open a Bible, take any verse out of the Bible and put it into their songs. Mm-hmm. And they did. They just opened a Bible, put a verse in their song, and it's a song about mocking Jesus and his sacrifice. They call it their self-righteous sacrifice.
Oh my gosh.
It's wild when you see this stuff, but now that you really get into it, there is a very odd correlation between art and kind of making some of this more demonic stuff more approachable, presentable to a society.
Right. And I think that's one of the main means is Satan uses is the arts to pull people into his kingdom, pull people into further deception. Just look at, like we said, music, look at entertainment.
Oh, movies.
Movies,
TV.
you know, we
Theater.
dehumanize
Oh my
people.
gosh, theater.
Especially now theater. Holy cow.
Theater was so bad back in the early church that they stopped going to theater when they got saved.
They wouldn't
They're
participate in it.
We can't participate in this.
But we're getting to that point again.
We're already at that point, especially in our TV shows and our movies and stuff, where it's so degenerate and so degraded that, you know, we can pass off all this stuff as entertainment when it really is a thing to bring people into addiction and bring people into accepting errant lifestyles and accepting things that aren't of God.
Right.
You go, it's not that bad. Let them do what, let people do what they want. It just slowly degraded. We had the sexual revolution. We had all these different things that have changed the shape of our nation, and a lot of it's happened through media. And
now you can get away with pretty much anything as long as you just say it's art.
Yeah.
I mean, just short of some really heinous acts, just short of literal murder, which we're probably going to have to censor that, you can get away with anything. You just say, oh, it's art. You don't get it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's art. I mean, you can have, you'll see pictures of kids going to these shows that's just shocking.
Right.
Parents bringing their kids to, I'm trying to figure out.
Pornographic, shows that is.
Yeah.
Welcome to Indiana.
Yeah. That's just not good. And it totally is. It's a way to desensitize. It's a way to groom. It's a way to do these things that,
No, I don't say that either.
Well,
you have to say broom.
It's a way to broom people, sweep them, sweep children.
Go
It's
ahead.
just really interesting how media is used for that. And there's a lot of influence that Satan does use through media.
Through creative means.
And through creative means.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, a long time ago, I had a kind of a revelation on creativity, and you're getting it from somewhere. Mm-hmm. No matter what, you're either getting it from one of two sources.
Yeah.
And more often than not, you just see a lot of these artsy types that are getting it right from Satan.
Well, I think it's influenced from those one or two sources because God gives us creativity, gives us gifts.
Right.
And how it's influenced and used is up to us. And I think a lot of times it does get influenced in the wrong way.
Yeah. Well, and I think that we as human beings are also drawn to the arts.
Right.
In a specific way because our creator was artistic.
Yeah, he's got creativity.
He's got the creativity. And so we as his creation are drawn to that. And Satan knows that. And so that's one of the easiest ways for him to twist it.
Yeah, definitely. But so now we know, open your eyes to the spiritual world. If you have any babies in your house, it's probably pagan.
Shoot.
Unless it's a real baby.
Well, when they're up at night.
That's up for debate.
When they're screaming at you at 3 a.m. Are you a pagan?
Remember the song. Remember the song. It's okay.
Children are a blessing.
Yep, absolutely. But that's what's interesting too about about media and about like how America's turned is Jesus, if you look at the importance he placed on children and the honor he placed on children, they said, if you offend these little ones, it's better for a millstone to be wrapped around your neck and you thrown into the sea. And how much we have fallen from that. And it's just, that's really interesting.
To the point where you have Disney outright admitting, what they're putting in their shows.
Yeah.
You have that leaked call where they said they have a not so secret, and you can quote me, not so secret gay agenda.
Yeah.
I mean, they're definitely putting these in the shows for children.
For the purpose of influencing.
Yes.
And that's the thing. It's not like an innocent thing. It's for the purpose to influence.
Right. There's an agenda.
Media is powerful, and you can influence. Satan knows you can influence people through media. Mm-hmm. And we have become a society that has been enraptured in media and enraptured in these things where it's like we can't pull away from it.
No.
And get away from it anymore. We have to watch the latest show. We have to watch the latest thing. And it's really, really hurting us as a society and as people and Christians where, you're supposed to be called away from the world. You don't need to watch the latest show.
No.
You don't need to be watching the latest entertainment and the latest thing that's going on, because anymore, especially nowadays, oftentimes it's just total garbage, and it's something God hates.
Well, and there's a weird theme recently even where all these shows are starting to have it's very odd. They're all starting to shift towards lesbian witches. Have you noticed that? So Marvel put out a show about lesbian witches.
I did see that.
I think it's Agatha something or other. I don't know because I don't pay attention to Marvel or Disney anymore.
Didn't Star Wars too?
Star Wars did as well, Acolyte. And not only that, but now these are leaks, so allegedly, Ubisoft's new Assassin's Creed deals in the Salem witch trials and will feature lesbian witches. Like that just seems to be this concept. It's called Assassin's Creed Hex.
Well, I think, we're seeing a shift in our society. You go to Barnes and Noble.
Oh gosh.
And you see just on every end cap, it's witchcraft.
Yeah.
They're
It's
just blatant. They're
absolute
just saying
witchcraft. And like in where our society's turning to, it's turning to Satanism is turning to witchcraft, and
they're trying to make it
all
trendy.
these different things, making it trendy, all these different things. And it's like, so there's blatantly, it's obviously dangerous.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, oh, it's just, make believe, you look at the stars, you do this, you do that, you read a palm, you whatever, all these different things. But those are very real things that open up doors to the supernatural, because, the occult is just a way of accessing the supernatural if you don't want to access it through God.
Right.
Yeah.
And through the Holy Spirit of communing with him. It's opening up the door to commune with Pootie.
Well, and I mean, you even look at one of the most popular YouTube cartoons, and it's literally the girl goes and she goes to old demoniacs, finds these demons, these documented demons, and she'll make them the main characters of this cartoon. Now, mind you, the cartoon is not for children, but it's on YouTube. I mean, if you just search it, you're going to find it. And she makes these demons lovable. In the show, she gives them character. She makes them, appealing design-wise. It's just, you see it time and time again. You're just seeing it more blatant where people are selling demons to you.
Right.
Yeah.
They're making them
Well, it's
trendy.
normalizing it. It's like, it's a falling back to like, oh, this thing isn't actually that bad. And
Right.
it's a turning away from really God.
Well, it's twisting. It's an inversion. Maybe God's the bad guy.
Yeah.
And that's what it always comes down to. Maybe God's the bad guy. Maybe he's the controlling one. I mean, you look at, a lot of various, you look at like Freemasonry and things like that. They'll try and portray Satan as, I'm trying to think of who it was.
Like the underdog or...
Well, there's actually a Greek...
I forget how it...
the Greek god that, was it Prometheus that brought people fire?
Yeah.
Was it Prometheus?
I think so.
Fact check, Jamie?
I can fact check that.
So,
Fact check, Jamie.
but they'll try and make Satan's giving of Eve the apple, they'll try and say, oh, it's a noble act.
Right.
He
it
was
a
giving her
noble act.
knowledge.
He was giving her knowledge of good and evil and all this other stuff. Yeah. And it wasn't
You were correct.
It was Prometheus.
Yes.
Okay.
Wasn't noble at all. But that's where I think people, their hearts are turning. And you definitely see it in our nation.
It's
Our
that
nation-
rebelliousness. It's that
our
wanting to
nation
live how
has
you want.
turned back to Baal.
Right. There is a freedom that comes from rebelliousness, but it is a physical freedom.
And it's hedonism. And, the Bible says that, Moses forsook the passing pleasure of sin
And that's what it is. It's
for
passing.
obedience. And sin and rebellion, it's a passing pleasure.
It's 100%
And so it's
passing
not
pleasure.
like something that is like, oh, I hate doing this and all this other stuff.
Otherwise, we wouldn't do it.
It
Right.
wouldn't be tempting if it wasn't something our flesh desired.
Right.
Well, we can
And-
see the passing pleasure in an addict. It's you watch as the hits they need more.
Yeah.
They need more, and eventually they just keep needing more and more and more. And what does that lead to?
Destruction.
Yeah.
It leads to death.
It leads to death.
And that's
Eventually, there's an
where
overdose.
sin leads. It's not an instant death. It's the Bible says sin leads you to death. It takes you by the hand and walks you along that path until you're in it and you can't get out of it.
Right.
So, very interesting stuff.
Heavy topics from evil babies.
Yes, from descriptions of angels to evil babies.
It got heavy, but man, it's interesting. It's very
Yeah, it is.
interesting. It's odd. Again, we just touch back on the whole thing where it's delivered through the same means
Right,
over and over and over again. It's just history repeating itself.
right.
Well, because there's nothing new under the sun.
That's right, and the Bible says that too. It tells you that as well.
Yeah, Bible
Yeah.
says there's nothing new under the sun, and Satan has a playbook, and he's extremely good at it. I was talking to a friend, and I said, it's really a master class in deception and in how Satan works with what we're seeing in our current political sphere and political climate, where you can make a whole subsect of people or whole group of people get a new mental illness, and give them a new mental illness just from your propaganda.
It was me that you were talking to. You are tired.
No, I was talking to Jacob about it. Did I tell you about this too?
You told me about it too.
Oh, I am
Didn't
tired
tell
then.
me. I am new to this conversation.
But it's really interesting that
Welcome.
welcome. You've arrived. It's really interesting that you can give like a whole group of people like a literal mental illness, being classified as mental illness from propaganda, from just over and over telling them this is bad, this is evil, this person's evil, this person's evil, this person's evil, and like make people go literally insane with it.
Well,
Yeah.
you said
And
that about
it's
mental.
wild.
You said that about mental illness, and I mean, there's other things right now that are very popular, very trendy to be, and you can see people suddenly shift to those. We'll be careful on how we say it, but there's a mimetic thing in.
No, I don't think we should beat around the bush. We need to tell the truth and like
Oh yeah,
tell people like, God loves them.
it's just very interesting how the amount of kids now identifying as
Like cats, dogs,
different sexes,
things like that. And
whereas this never happened before. Now, and you go back
it's
further,
a mass. It did, but now it's a mass thing.
Right.
And I think it's important to tell people the truth that stuff's not right, but God loves them.
Yeah.
He cares for them, and he made them for a purpose, on purpose.
Oh, 100%.
And I think that's important to get across, and that's why I think it's important not to, but to really say, God loves you.
Yeah.
He died for you. He cares for you, and he wants the best for you. And when we accept these lies and we're like, well, maybe I'm not maybe I'm not a male, or maybe I'm not a female, maybe I'm a cat, maybe I'm a dog, and we accept all these lies and go, well, it's not that big of a deal, or whatever it is.
Right.
It's changing we're trying to change and rebel of how God created us.
Right. And you get the people who think that that like people like us genuinely want to unalive them just because that they have they think that we hate them.
Say that again.
They think that there are people that think that people like us want them unalived simply because of that. They think that we hate them simply because of that. We don't hate you.
Right.
There's no amount of us that hates you. It's
we want to help you.
Well,
we
there's
want you to see the truth.
well, and the thing is there's a thing about adopting sin as your identity.
Yeah.
And you'll go to like a lot of Alcoholics Anonymous and they'll say, "Oh, I'm an alcoholic." And that's like one of the worst things you can do is say, "Oh, hi, I'm a drug addict, I'm an alcoholic." You're adopting that into yourself. You're saying that that's who you are. You're taking that sin and making that a part of who you are.
Or just saying, I'm a naturally anxious person.
Right.
Yeah.
And those things that God died and delivered you from, you're taking that, well, that's just who I am, when the Bible says if you confess Jesus as your Lord, that the old things pass away. So that may have been who you are, but those things pass away and all things become new.
Well, and it's like lust is in a lot of cases, a lot of these things are people adopting the lust as their identity.
Right.
You're sitting there and saying, "Well, I'm attracted to this. This is who I am."
Right.
And then you base your identity around that. When that's not who you are, that's something that you struggle with.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the problem with our society right now, is that we're pushing this into a place where we're ignoring truth. We're saying, well, that's how you're born. There's no evidence of that.
Right. Right.
And, you have people who, I mean, man, we're getting into some deep stuff, but there are people who have turned away from those sins and live a very different life. Right. And that doesn't mean that you don't have that proclivity to sin again. I have my own weaknesses. Everybody has their own weaknesses where they're drawn to sins, but I don't accept that weakness or that sin for who I am.
Right.
I don't accept the addiction as me.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing, like accepting truth, the truth of God's word. Of who does God say I am? I'm righteous. I'm loved. I have a purpose. I was put here for a purpose, on purpose. I'm not just floating around here.
You are not an accident.
Yeah, you're not an accident.
And we want God to meet you where you're at.
Yeah, God
That's
will meet you where you're at.
You don't have to change to meet God. You meet God to change. And that's, I think, that a big thing is you get a lot of a lot of people that find themselves in these sins that think that we, hate them, that we want them, gone. It's not it at all.
Right.
It's you don't love somebody by allowing them to destroy their lives.
Right.
That's not how it works.
You warn them before they step out in front of the bus.
Exactly. I mean, that's what it is. And, you have these people who will scream and say, well, we want to step in front of the bus. Well, then what does that mean for us if we just let you?
Right.
Yeah.
Are we good people then? Are we moral people by just saying, go for it? It's your life.
Yeah. You do what you want to do.
It takes a lot. It's a struggle to actually go out and you're trying to reach out to everybody you can to try and help them.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
And it's God that puts that impetus in you.
Right.
I mean, you see the fire and you're just begging him, don't go towards it.
Right.
Well, because God gives you his heart for these people. He wants you to see them the way he sees them. And you can't just ignore someone who is hurting and someone who is lost.
Right.
You have his eyes.
Yeah, it's you start seeing people like, if you have a sibling, you might look at a kid who's on the side of the street and say, that looks like my brother. Would I ignore my brother if my brother was asking for money? Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying to give money to everybody. There's, you have to be very discerning on that. You might want to just give them food. I think that's kind of the better thing to do. Give them food or give them resources rather than just money. But you might have somebody who God puts on your heart to give like $20, but you start looking at people and saying, that could be my mother. That could be my brother. That could be any other person that could be related to me. Am I going to ignore them?
Right.
Would I treat that person any different? And it's God that puts that heart in you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see people that are marching themselves to hell, that could be my mother. That could be my brother. That could be anybody who I care about. You're desperately going to try and reach out and say, we don't want you there.
Right.
Right.
You don't realize it, but this life is it's over like that.
Life is but a vapor.
It is but a vapor.
And when we, the Bible says today is the day of salvation. It's not, you need to make the choice and go, you know what? I'm going to choose to follow God. I may not even understand what all that means right now.
Right.
But I'm going to choose to follow God. I'm going to choose to obey his word. I'm going to choose to have faith and trust in him because his ways are going to be better than my ways.
Yeah.
And they are. It just proves it over and over again. You know, as you start going on that path, you start realizing it.
And everything points, in this world points back to Christ.
Right.
Everything does point back to Christ, even in science. We were talking about this for a segment, but it goes along with what we're talking about. Even in science, all of it points to Jesus. And there was a professor, Peter W. Stoner.
Good name.
And he wrote a book called The Science Speaks.
Well, it was called Whoa, the Science Speaks, but they changed the whoa. Watch Peter Stoner's gonna be such a nice guy. He's gonna be like, why is he making fun of my name?
He figured out the mathematic probability of someone just fulfilling 8 of the messianic prophecies, just 8 of them. And it was 1 in 10 to the 17th powers, or 1 with, let's see.
17 zeros.
Yeah, 17 zeros behind it.
Okay.
And in case you're wondering, the Mega Millions has $1.6 billion jackpot in October 2018, and the odds of winning it were a mere 1 in 302 million.
And what makes those prophecies important, too, is it's different sources throughout time.
It's different, 3 different languages, tons of people throughout time who had no contact with each other.
Right.
40 different books. And it's just like it just spans for
Written
so far.
over 1,000 years?
Yeah.
Or more, actually. I don't know. Yeah. I mean.
And then he went on to calculate the one person fulfilling 48 prophecies is 1 in 10 to the 157th power. So that's one. That's, yeah, I know. It's
So
hard
Levi,
to comprehend. It's basically a 1 with 157 zeros behind it.
Yeah. I was going to ask
numbers.
Levi, what's that number called?
I don't know.
I had a word that I was going to say, but it might get us banned. So
Oh.
there's a number word that sounds like a dirty word.
Oh. Oh.
I was like,
I'm not sure what you're thinking about, but you'll have to tell me later, I guess.
It'll be later.
And apparently this guy's manuscript was reviewed by the Committee of American Scientific Affiliation members and by the Executive Council of the same group, and was found to be, in general, to be dependable, accurate in regard to any or in regard to the scientific material presented.
Right.
So it's really interesting. They said that he applied these principles in a proper and convincing way. So he applied the math correctly, basically, to what he was talking about how.
So it's peer reviewed. It was checked.
Yeah,
that's kind of the interesting thing.
Of Jesus is like fulfilling even 8 prophecies, so which is basically impossible when you look at him, and then him, fulfilling all the messianic prophecies, impossible. But he did it,
Right.
Yeah,
and that's
he
the
did.
thing. He did do that, and everything points back to Christ. Science. Everything does point back to him.
Well, and that's a whole other video in and of itself. I mean, that's a big discussion of just like how reliable the Bible is, how accurate the statistics. I mean, you could go into there's a whole book on it.
Yeah.
So there you go. What was that called? The
Case for Christ.
Case for Christ.
Yeah. If you want a good read, The Case for Christ has a lot of that in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the museum. What's that museum called?
The Creation Museum.
Creation Museum.
Near
It has
Cincinnati.
Yeah, they have stuff about that too, which
Yeah.
is really cool.
I
We
have
need to
not-
go.
I have not been to the updated version of it, and I really want to.
We need to go. Well, we were going to go, and then we had a baby.
Oh yeah.
Unexpectedly. That came several.
6 weeks early.
Yeah.
That was
Several weeks
wild. It
early.
totally did. It completely.
Literally the day we were going to go, we had the baby.
Okay, the word that I was thinking of does exist.
What? Oh,
The mathematical word that I'm not allowed to say on the podcast, it does exist.
okay. Now everyone's gonna be like, "What's the word? What's the word?"
I can't think of
If
a
you
good play
can't
on
say
words.
it-
I can't think of a good
If
play
you
on
can't
words.
say it, don't say it.
Something tile.
I couldn't.
I
tell.
couldn't. I have no idea.
No idea.
Look up the dirty math word.
Or you can just tell us later.
Yeah, that'll be later.
Tell us after the pod. That's for our Patreon episode.
Where we say what the math word is. It's a PG-13 content right there. That's gonna get you unmonetized.
Oh my
Speaking of interesting symbolism and interesting like Bible things, do you have to tell us about the Tula worm?
No, I don't. It was fresh last week. We didn't. Well, not last week. Gosh,
It was only 2 days ago.
it's been a little bit.
It's 2 days.
It's been a whole vacation away.
No. We tried to record and you were going to look it up.
Oh no, not last week.
Yes.
All this is gonna have to be cut out. The timeline's messed up.
No.
You're sleepy, Bien.
Now you're trying to gaslight me.
Not. It was.
I
Like,
know what I'm talking
it was
about.
pre-time jump arc. It was when I still had a beard that we talked about the Tola worm.
But we didn't go into it, and we said we were going to go into it
It
more.
wasn't fresh. I said I was going to do it next week, and then you guys left for a week, and you left me behind. And
Levi,
that's-
I texted you on our way home from New Mexico. I texted you and said, "Do your research on that worm."
you may have done that.
I 100% did that. Do you want me to
trying
bring
to
up that
gaslight me
text?
when you trying to get me when I'm vulnerable and tired?
It was not a
That's
gaslight.
interesting.
It was not a
That's
gaslight.
interesting.
Cut all this out. But motorcycle.
It scared me for a second.
That did.
He came to change the topic, and I'm thankful for him. I did see a good movie though.
You know what, Levi? You know what?
Hold on a second.
Go ahead with your
I'm
movie.
looking. I'm looking.
What were you looking for? There's a
I was
button.
looking for a button, but I don't have anything.
You don't have the
dang it.
confidence of the button.
Yeah.
All right. I said on
She's pulling
the
out records
16th.
now.
the 16th, Monday the 16th,
And today is the 20th.
So that's
For
like
lovely
4
viewers.
whole days.
to give you plenty of time to research.
For what it's worth, I was prepared to talk about it pre-vacation, but you guys got tired because you guys are old, and I said we'll save it, but we'll have to do it some other time.
We'll save it, and then we never pull it back out again is what's happening. All right. Well, you know what it's time for? Bible trivia.
Oh boy.
How many people were in the upper room at Pentecost?
Jamie goes first.
13?
50.
You're both wrong.
I have.
I need
idea.
a
Wait. Is it higher or lower?
higher.
300.
Oh, that's a lot.
I'm going for broke. 500.
Another guess.
70.
120.
That's a lot.
She was closer. Yeah. She would have gotten the car.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that number?
The Bible.
The Bible has many books in it, sweetheart.
It's an axe.
Thank you. Gosh. The Bible.
The Bible. Where'd you get that number? Where are you pulling this out from? Where are your sources? Cite your sources.
No. I can't stand it when you fight.
Well, I guess neither of you win the new car today.
No, she's closer. She would
A
get
new
it.
car?
Yeah,
Can I get a new car?
maybe.
That's a no. We don't have that in our budget.
But if I would have won, would I have gotten a new car?
Yeah.
Okay.
You would have gotten like a Hot Wheels.
I get the RV.
So I guess that's the wrap then, because we don't have Tula worm.
Do you have a review for us?
I do. I
Oh,
did
yeah,
watch
yeah,
a
yeah,
movie.
yeah.
I did watch a movie. So I watched the new Ultraman.
Levi's reviews. Oh wait, no, that's not what.
I like that though.
Never mind. I'm going home.
Levi's reviews.
Womp 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 womp.
Oh my gosh.
But I did. I
funny.
saw So Netflix was doing an Ultraman movie called Ultraman Rising.
Still laughing.
He still likes the button press.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to find good family movies nowadays, which we were just getting into about how media is absolutely terrible. So I went into this, and it's a Western-made movie, which is even more ate up sometimes. But it was covering an old Japanese property that's like, think Godzilla, but with like a guy in a giant silver mask. And so I went into it kind of expecting the usual Netflix weirdness, you know, pushing all of what is considered diverse nowadays, a lot of gay characters, a lot of feminism, evil white man bad type stuff. Very wholesome movie. Extremely wholesome. It was a superhero story that focused mostly on the characters. So there was very little action, which is nice because I feel like in most superhero movies, it's all action and no characters. So, you know, when these characters who you barely know are on these crazy fights, you don't really feel anything. You don't really feel any weight because you barely know the characters. This was mostly a drama about parenthood. It put parenthood in a very real but good light.
Okay.
It had to do with a guy who was basically thrown into being a parent, and it does it in a neat way. And he talks with this single mom who's been a parent for a little bit. And so it kind of goes through the highs, the lows. Just very wholesome, very good. I'd say the biggest gripes were at times in the movie. And this was kind of like, this is a thing with bad movies sometimes, is when the writers forget logical things. So if a superhero can fly and a character is falling off a building, should the superhero fly to get the character who's falling off the building?
I would think so.
You would think so. It doesn't feel good when a main character forgets their powers. So like sometimes the movie will put dramatic situations that are very fixable, and it's very aggravating when those happen.
Okay.
But it's pretty good. It's a good
is
family
good.
movie. It's a good I think it is a very good family movie. I think that there is some intense parts for kids, especially with one of the characters that kind of is like a baby. There's like a giant monster baby. There's a giant monster baby that he takes care of. There's one particular scene that I think kids would have a trouble with, where that character has a broken arm at one point.
Okay.
It's
so
a
is
very-
it just kind of, is it graphic at all, or is
Not
it
really.
just...
That part in specific is a very emotionally charged part. Imagine if
Gotcha.
your kid got hurt, how you would feel.
Gotcha.
They
Yeah.
did a very, very, very good job at making a parent seem scared for their son, or I guess in this case, their daughter. So that was pretty much it. I think what surprised me was there was not really any messaging. I'd say about the worst things in it from like a Christian parent standpoint. They say OMG a little more than I would appreciate. Like it's almost like every other sentence.
Really? That's a lot.
Like I could probably count. Maybe it's an over exaggeration. Now I'm tired. I would say maybe like 15, 20 times in that movie do they say OMG. So depending on how you feel about that part kind of rubbed me wrong. I was like, you can say other things.
Yeah. Gee willikers. Come on.
I'm trying to think of like something Japanese they would say.
Gojira!
Can't say
In
that.
French, they'd say, mon oi. It means my eye.
But like, you know, you could have some different characters have different things that they would say when they're shocked. And when they're all
Yeah. saying
saying OMG like over and over and over again, that kind of gets a little tired, you know. It depends on your stance of taking the Lord's name in vain. If that's going to bother you, probably not. If you don't want your kids learning that, probably not. Other than that, light alcohol. Sometimes they would drink, sometimes they wouldn't get drunk, but they would drink some alcohol from time to time. Other than that, I mean, if you're looking for a good family movie that deals with parenthood and kids not sleeping,
Sounds like real life.
kids never sleeping, it's a good movie.
What was it called again?
Ultraman Rising is a
Okay.
Netflix, I think, original. It is done by I believe the people that did Kubo and the Two Strings,
I'm not familiar with that.
Coraline.
Okay, yeah.
So it's
Coraline was weird, man.
it is, but this one mind you, I'm really sensitive to weird stuff in movies now. Like Coraline, I probably wouldn't watch again.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, me neither.
I couldn't finish it when I watched it.
No, it's a
I
little
was like,
spooky. There's
this
definitely
is-
something on that.
You know what I did to Hannah when we watched Coraline?
What did you do?
I bought black buttons off eBay, a bunch of them,
Uh-huh.
and then I would like wait for her in a room, and I'd put them in my eyes and like hold them where my eyes were. Then she'd come into her room and be like, "Hi, Hannah."
Oh my gosh. Are you serious? You really
Yeah.
did that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Poor Hannah was tortured.
But it was nice. It was nice actually watching something without really any weird messaging. I mean, there just wasn't the current, I guess, themes of Western entertainment in it. There wasn't really any hidden symbolism in there. It was just a very earnest movie about family, parenthood, and kind of what you put into that. And if you can sacrifice some parts that don't make any sense, then it's fun. Like there's several parts in there where you're like you're gonna be frustrated if you can realize that he flies.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So
Play us out, Sick Levi.
I don't know what to do.
That's not good enough.
I thought you were gonna play our song.
Oh yeah, you have the song, the outro song. Are we gonna give any context to the outro song, or are we just gonna play it?
Oh yeah, we didn't give context.
You know what?
We're just gonna play it.
We're just gonna play it. We're just gonna say context is Ben and Jamie didn't sleep.
Yep. Tell them to like and subscribe.
Oh yeah. If you would not mind liking and subscribing to the video to our YouTube channel, it helps us greatly. Helps us get pushed out in the algorithm, and really it just helps people see this content. Might change some lives. I'm gonna leave I don't know what you call that, the gospel message to Ben.
We covered it, and my camera died, so I don't want to do it in a AI format.
Wait,
We
your
did kinda cover
character,
it.
your camera died
Again, yeah.
Again.
Oh
'Cause
my
the
gosh.
battery wasn't charged that I put in it. It only had a little bit.
That's probably a good idea not to cover it in your hand.
I would like to say to our the people who do watch our videos that we have seen seeds get planted already. We only have, this is only our 9th video. We've already seen people who are not believers, people who don't follow the Lord, watching our videos, commenting, engaging with us, and talking about how they enjoy our podcast. And this is our way of outreaching, this
Right.
is our way of getting content out there in a fun way, but also introducing people to the Lord who aren't already believers.
Well, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, is that 2 batteries? AI Ben and AI Jamie, is mine gonna die too?
No, you're just the only one that's not going to die. It's my phone, so it's charged.
But all that to say, we're not just over here, we're being silly and we're being goofy, but
Right.
there is a goal in all of this, and our goal is to plant seeds and ask the Lord to flourish those seeds and to give people a better understanding of what it means to be a Christian.
It's to be a bridge.
And yeah,
It's to be a bridge to people. I mean, if you watch this podcast and you feel that tug, that's everything. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. We are here for, I can't remember if we ever covered this, but it is, God gives us these resources, these talents to reach you, to reach the viewer, to give you a chance, an opportunity to really think about who Jesus is and really consider that relationship with him. I'm sure you've got a Bible in the house. Maybe you start feeling that want to go read it, and that's everything to us.
Yeah. And
So-
so that's why we ask you to like and subscribe and share, is because it does help our algorithm.
Right.
And the more people that we reach, the more people are introduced to Jesus.
But we're happy with just one. We are happy with just one.
Yeah.
So be
But
that
we've
one.
we've already seen and engaged with different people who
Right.
have already been impacted by these videos.
Right. So
So-
make us happy. Be that one. Make it all worth it. Man, we got 2 AI people going on. I love this. I'm so sad that mine.
I'm very upset about it.
Now you really got to play us out.
I don't have the song.
Well,
Ben?
you gotta like do something.
You can't put me on the spot.
Do a jig or something, monkey.
Dance for me, monkey.
You know what? I will let Ben play a gentle melody for you both right now. Just get you guys. It'll bless you both. It'll bless me. And I don't know when it's going to cut in and when it's going to cut out, but I know that at some point it is going to start. And at some point it will end.
And it will be beautiful.
Ben and Jamie, they can barely keep their eyes on tiny feet.
Giggles and whispers, it's a wild